Deep dive interviews with music gear inventors, builders, creators, and tone chasers. The Gear Gab Podcast with Eric Dahl uncovers the behind-the-scenes stories of the music gear that inspires us. And now, here's your host, Eric Dahl.
It's so great to have on the show a person that most of you know his name, at least with the initials, L.R. Baggs. It is Lloyd Baggs. Talking with him, he is a luthier, a pickup designer, a guitar builder, effects builder, many areas with L.R. Baggs. And it's exciting, Lloyd, to have you on the show and talk about, some of your innovations over the years and also about you.
Thanks, Eric. It'll be a pleasure. I hope you don't tell too many to me.
But it's always so much fun because having met you, Lloyd, and talked with you several times over the years, at NAMM show and even here in Nashville, Tennessee. And you're just one of those guys to where it's like so many of us, and myself included, have multiple instruments with LR Baggs pickup systems including, as I showed you, the Godin, when you worked with them on the T-style acoustic. But so many people, I was bringing up before we get going to where I saw on social media recently where you had where Dan Tominski was talking about putting one of your pickups into one of his prize guitars. And also we recently had Trey Hensley on. And I know that Trey uses LR Baggs pickups, but I want to talk about you a little bit first, Lloyd, to where, started out, with acoustic guitars as a luthier in downtown LA. But
Yeah.
I made the assumption you started out as a guitar player. You started out as a cellist.
Yeah. I'm an awful guitar player. Um,
So you started out as cello, and then you went to
Yeah.
harmonica and then guitar.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I was actually a pretty accomplished cellist as a kid, but a terrible student. And so my teacher was the first chair of the LA Philharmonic, and uh, and I actually made it into the UCLA Symphony as a high school freshman.
That's
And they made it.
incredible. I mean, you had to
And,
be pretty darn good.
well, I was on a career path. I had chosen the UCLA Symphony over Young Musicians Foundation, which there were two parallel paths in LA at the time to become a pro, and I was on that path. But as I said, I was an awful student in high school, so I actually got into a college on the strength of my musicianship. It was Occidental College. They wanted me in their orchestra and kinda swept my grades and stuff under the rug, which was kind of a mistake. I was a man, I felt like the village idiot when I got to college because those people
Oh,
were really smart. But anywho, and my teacher, Joseph DiTullio, he had quit the Phil to go to work for, 20th Century Fox because they paid twice as much. And so he said he was going to start subbing me on dates that he couldn't take about that time. So, anywho, I'm a freshman, I'm studying, I got the flu, I'm studying for midterms, and there's a knock on my dorm door one night, and a bunch of the freshman football team were hazing students at the time. And so, basically, the halfback on the football team was ready to come into my room
yeah.
with 3 or 4 other giggling guys, and I just gave him a left cross in the face and laid him out, but I also broke these 2 fingers pretty badly in the
Oh, that sounds
process.
Lloyd.
Yeah, it was so, uh, that kinda ended, well, at least sidelined my, cello career, seriously, and it took a year of therapy before I could do even that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it was
Well,
it
that must
was,
have been a heck of a punch.
well, it was one and done. He 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 and I subsequently became really good friends, but, it was a life-changing, moment, but I was in college, I was having a ball,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, I can't be in the orchestra anymore. And honestly, at that time, the orchestra wasn't really that great. So I wasn't that brokenhearted to be out of that. And so I ended up switching to and got my degree in art in photography and printmaking. So
Well, and
I
that's
ended
another thing, and you gotta talk about this, Lloyd, to where I did not know that, back in the day, which leads us up to the Ry Cooder story, that was your, like, day job was print.
oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, so after college, I got myself oh, man, did I luck out. Um, I actually became a fine art master printer and making those prints I worked in workshops that were doing Jasper Johns, Lichtenstein, Warhol, Frank Stella, Joseph Albers, like the big New York guys, and Ed Richey, and that whole group, and so I had quite a print collection,
I
that
mean, those are
that
heavy hitters. I mean, my mom was an art teacher, so I was brought up around a lot of printmakers and people, in the same realm as you, and it's like, you are working with the heavy hitters, Lloyd.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got blessed to start off in this place. So anyway, I my first 6 years, out of college, I ended up as the assistant master printer in Editions Press in San Francisco, where we did the Mexican Master Suite and Fritz Scholder and some of those guys. And then I moved to become the master printer at Cirrus Editions, in Los Angeles after I'd started making guitars. So, yeah, I was like, I made my first guitar out of yeah, I'm working at Editions Press. There's half a dozen printers in this place, and they're all kind of following my progress. And so the day I bought some wood from some dealer, and there was one book at the time on how to make a guitar, and the chapter on
Who was that book by?
I have no idea.
I remember I think I've got a copy of it somewhere.
It was little, and the chapter on tone was 2 pages, and, so
A whole 2 pages on tone.
right. So here I am, I'm finally getting this, and it's a testament to glue too, because I put so much force on those parts, and I had the thing hanging on a wall for years afterwards, and every time I would walk by it, I would almost wince, expecting it to explode. But anyway, I'm all excited, I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna string this guitar up tonight and hear what it finally sounds like, and my buddy at the print shop says, probably gonna sound like a ten-penny nail hitting the asphalt on a hot day."
That's hurtful. That's hurtful after you've worked on an instrument that long.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. But anyway, I got the better end of the deal. So I had been working for, an artist by the name of Sam Francis, in his own personal workshop, and I had met Susan Cooder, Ry Cooder's wife, because she was an artist in that workshop, and so then I kinda got to know Ry a little bit, and so I finished this guitar, and I brought it down to Ry. And I said, "Hey, Ryan, I made this guitar. What do you think?" And he played it a couple of minutes and looks up and says, "When you gonna build me one?"
Wah, wah. That's when it's on. That's the gauntlet.
Yeah, yeah. And so that took me about 2 more so anyway, I'm still working in San Francisco at the time. The owner of Cirrus Editions, Jean Mallant, calls me up and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a master printer. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Uh-huh." And because I knew I was gonna shift to guitar making, and so I wanted to be where more of the musicians were, and so I took the opportunity to go down to Los Angeles, and I found a loft in an upstairs of an old fire station in the bowels of downtown Los Angeles, about half a mile east of where the Staples Center is, or whatever they're calling it now. and built my workshop and built a loft into there and built a workshop in there and started making guitars in there. And it took me till guitar number 6 to where I felt like the necks were working okay and everything was working okay to finally deliver that guitar to Rye.
Wow. Yeah, and then you got to tell the I want to hear the rest of the story though too, because then, I dug into interviews on it, Lloyd, to where Rye was in studio and called you down to the studio to hear one of his recordings, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, anywho, Rye was one of the pioneers of amplified acoustic music. And so he would bring this instrument of his that I built for him over to my studio pretty regularly to put this, that, and the other device in the guitar so he could play with it live.
Okay.
And so he had this contraption in his own personal studio at home, this rack the size of a refrigerator with graphic EQs and compressors and thises and that's and stuff that he used to try and make his guitar sound reasonable when he would tour. But my the thing I remember the most about it is how much he swore at it. Like he hated this thing and he hated the process. But anyway, he's bringing all this stuff to to my studio to install in the guitar that I'd made for him. So, um, had just finished a second acoustic for him. A couple years later, he asked me to make another one for him. He had this idea, so, I made this little kind of Machiavelli looking thing for him, and and, uh and so a couple weeks after I delivered it, he called me up, said, "Hey, Lloyd, I'm working on something down in the studio. There's something I really want you to hear. Can you come on down?" And he was at Warner Brothers, so yeah, sure. Anyway, I jumped on there and I'm on my way down. I'm breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. Oh, this is so cool, right? So I I walk in the studio and I walk past my guitar leaning up against an amp. And he says, "Hey, come in." Brings me in the control room and plays me some instrumental just the guitar only part from, "Bop Till You Drop."
Oh yeah.
And here's these big old soffitted monitors, a big old control room, and he lights this thing up, and my jaw hit the floor. I was like, "Oh my god, Rye, how did you mic that sucker?" And he says, "That's what I wanted you to see." Said, "I didn't mic it. I hate to tell you this, but Takamine copied your guitar and made a pickup and put it in that, and that's what you're hearing. You're hearing a Takamine copy of your guitar with their pickup. It's pretty good, isn't it?"
Wow. That gets you right here, right in the heart.
Well, I was it was the weirdest combination of elated, insulted, and pissed and excited. Uh, it was
All
a
the
strange
ones.
Yeah, it was a strange cocktail of emotions, but the one that remained was excitement because I could not believe what I was hearing,
Right.
and so he had just run the thing into a chorus, put the chorus into a deluxe amp, mic'd the amp, and woo, just magic. So, I
But also, it's a testament to you on what you did after that, that a lot of people wouldn't have done, to where, you got to tell about talking with Takamine and what you requested. They provided you
well,
then.
actually, I'm not sure if revenge is a testament to me, but that was my first motive. And I remember after I left, I thanked him, and, so I remember going out and sitting in my car for about 30 minutes, just alternately being excited, pissed, excited, intrigued. What's going on here? This is interesting. All that stuff's going on there. And finally at the end of that, before I put my key in the ignition, I said, "This is where acoustic guitar is going. I'm gonna get some of that, and I'm gonna bury those bastards." Right? That was my initial that was my initial,
Right.
but subsequently, we've become great friends. I loved the guys at Takamine. David Vincent's is a great dear friend of mine, but that initial thing wasn't exactly, exemplary, right?
It's visceral. I mean, when you built this and you thought, you know, Ry Cooder had recorded with the instrument you created, and you're going down to hear this, and then you find out it's not. It's a copy of yours with a pickup inside that wasn't yours.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take at once.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyway, you know, Rye's wife, Susan, again, instrumental in all of this. Her best friend was Maserate's secretary in Los Angeles. So Rye was able to set up a meeting for me and Mr. Haradi and himself at the Disneyland Hotel Nam. I think it was might have been 78. And I remember picking Rye up in Santa Monica in my old beat the crap '59 Chevy pickup truck and driving down the 5 freeway at crazy speeds, no seat belts, with one of the treasures of the musical Our Century, right? Right? I'm like, just this beat the crap old pickup truck, and we're going to go meet with Mr. Harade. So, basically, through the meeting, I was able to, uh, I was able to get a promise from him that he would sell me 10 pickup systems a year because that's how many guitars I made, and I wanted people to be able to play them on stage so my name would get out there.
Right.
And he looked at me like, "That's all you want?" And I said, "Yeah, that's it." Stuck his hand out. A month or so, not even a month, a few weeks later, a couple of pickup systems show up, and I put one on a guitar, which worked great. I took the other one apart and went, "That's all this is?"
And then reverse it.
Little did I know, little did I know how ridiculously sophisticated it actually was. But that was another story that led me to beyond, well, I didn't go bankrupt, but I should have been. But anyway, um, that so I decided, okay, I'm all in this pickup business, right? I am all in, and I was getting tired of finishes and sanding by that time anyway, and I was making really good money making guitars, but I this pickup thing,
You
that's
knew
where I
it. You
was.
saw that. Now, when you were making the guitars, was this at the time when you were part of the Catgut Acoustical Society?
Yeah, yeah, actually,
Okay.
yeah.
I
This
thought,
this
wow, what a great name.
Oh, no kidding, and it came from Gut Violin Strings. And it was Carlene Hutchins that had put together a bunch of scientists to basically reverse engineer Stradivari.
I
And
thought that was brilliant because I mean, it's you and so many people watching and listening to the podcast where, you always talk about the Stradivarius effect, to where, even with older guitars, once the sap and everything dries and it crystallizes,
yeah,
and there's you can't recreate that record,
no.
but think it's so interesting that that society was put together for that.
Well, they made a lot of progress. So they were the first ones, I believe, to bring laser interferometry to study modes and nodes. And so they were talking, before you just energize it with a loudspeaker and watch the glitter do its dance. But they were using lasers, and I mean they had some eminent scientists in this. And so they were talking about mass and stiffness and weight and the aspect ratios of wood and stuff that was not covered in that 2 paragraphs on that first book that I got. So,
Well,
I
and
got
and at
a
this point too, it's like you're building, you were building guitars, you're doing really well with it. and sort of you've gotten out of the print business. But then with these pickups, once you reverse engineered them, then, companies started coming to you for pickup
Well,
systems, right?
yeah, I was able basically, the Takamine pickup was great, but it was really big and heavy, and I think only Ricky Skaggs was putting those on his guitars.
I just remember those early ones. And, just you and I talked to where it's like, I just remembered that at a certain volume, those fed back. You know what I mean? Like, I remember those early models, and it's like going, especially if you were on a stage with other loud instruments, like electric guitar and bass and drums, it would just start, it was hard to keep it from feeding back.
Well, that's always been an issue, but the talk pickups were actually pretty good, so all I wanted to do was make something that you could put in a decent guitar without killing the guitar and get a sound as good as the Takamine, so that was the LB6. So that eventually became the LB6, and so in the process of developing the LB6, I sold my entire print collection, I sold my cello, I sold my bows, went broke, and because I stopped making guitars. I was like, sounds like I
Now,
stopped I stopped
was
sort
Black Summer? Was this the Black Summer of '87?
no,
Or
no, we're not even getting there yet. So anyway, I took a
Valley?
this is yeah, I took a eventually, and then our daughter came along during that time, and it was like, "Oh my god, I better just pull my pants up and make a living here somehow." And so anyway, I got myself a job selling cars. So I sold cars for 4 years while we were getting out of debt, getting some savings, getting some customers, learning how to build the LB6, all that kind of stuff. And so basically after 4 years of selling cars and doing that, I left the car business, and my and but it was about preschool time for our daughter. And school in LA was rough, especially in downtown. So we decided to move to where my wife's sister lives still in the Central Coast of California here, so we could raise our families together with their cousins and have the extended family, and we just thought it'd be a lot healthier environment. So
Oh,
we moved up here. So things are good. We rented a house, we got a two-car garage, and thing life was pretty good, and I'm making and selling pickups, and then in the summer of '87, and I had gotten and Bob Taylor had started with me a couple years before as my first OEM. Yeah, back in Lemon Grove, they started
yeah.
using our pickups. So this was crazy thing. Now the LB6 was put to bonded with epoxy. The epoxy is a good thing because it conducts sound, but it's a bad thing because it's a bond. Bonds can break. Now we had it down, but during the summer of '87, we started having an inordinate amount of failures.
Huh.
And so I would basically sending 2 pickups out for every one that I sold.
That's hard.
And it took 3 months to identify what the problem was. It was so silly, I can't even it was so silly, I can't even talk about it, but we fixed the problem.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Bob called me up and said, "Lloyd, I'm really sorry. Your pickups are breaking on us. I gotta go with Larry." And so I remember that, another one of those etched in my brain, sitting on this stump on my front. This I was trying to grow a lawn at the time that I always failed at, and so I'm sitting on this stump on my failed lawn, and Bob's telling me that, and so anyway, the thing that it was so scary. My wife and I promised each other when we got in the business that I mean, so yeah, I gotta tell this. So I'm selling cars.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I had worked my way up to the top Porsche Audi dealership in California, and I'm loving it, and I'm making money.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
kinda
this is
kinda
good.
like that's not like selling Chevys.
Yeah,
You're
so
selling top line vehicles.
it was good, and we only had 6 sales guys where most places had 8. So we were making more money per salesman, and, I was making good money back then, and so, like but this pickup thing is starting to take off on me, so oh, man, this is hard 'cause I really I didn't expect to love selling cars as much as I did, but I really did, and so anyway, my wife and I, basically, we were new Christians at the time, and so we fasted and prayed for 3 days to make this decision. Stay in the business or do the pickup business. So at the end of that basic prayer visual, we both look, "Yeah, okay, let's do the business. This is scary, but let's go."
Right.
And so anyway, back to the garage. Our pickups are failing. What and at the time, we didn't have a lot of money. We were just getting by making pickups. We didn't have health insurance. Our daughter was pretty asthmatic, and anytime she'd get a cold, once in a while, she'd end up in the ER, and, so we didn't have health insurance, we had an asthmatic daughter, and my wife and I promised each other when we got into the business that the only time we were gonna quit is if we both cried at the same time.
Wow. Okay, it's a deal, you know?
Yep. So one night, we sat in our little garage and clipped the wires off of 100 pickups that were failing. That night, we both cried. But the next morning, we just went, "Nah, not really."
But at least also though, Lloyd, you and your wife were in it together. You know what
Oh
I mean?
gosh, yeah.
It's not like
Oh, yeah.
it's just like all you, all of the weight of the world on you.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
I couldn't have done this without her. I mean, I mean, she's supported me the whole time and, oh man, she's been awesome. So, yeah, so anyway,
So
we
is
fixed
this
the
like
pickup
after that with the
situation
Godan? Did the Godan deal happen after that?
right after that. So anyway, so speaking of the Lord is good,
All the
Bob had to pull the plug, and I don't blame him. Couple months later, we fixed the problem. And then the next thing you know, I mean, I really do believe in angels. We've had people that have helped us in our business, like Jackson Brown's one of our angels. He's helped us so much, and we've had people that have come help us when it didn't make any sense. And so here comes Robert right out of the blue, calls me up and says, "Lloyd, I've been hearing your pickups. They're pretty good. Could you sell me some?" And I went, well, twist my arm a little harder. And so we talked about how we can do this, and he said, "And so do you have a preamp?" And I said, "A what?"
Oh, what?
The thing that you put on the side of the guitar with the volume control and the electronics. I said, no, do you need one?" And he goes, well, yeah." And I said, "Okay, well, let me get back to you on that. I've got some friends." So, I was in the I beyond the be way before that. I've been building speakers and been into hi-fi since I was in college. So, I had friends in the hi-fi business, and so anyway, I said, "Well, let me get back to you on this. I got some friends that might be able to help me out." So anyway, I contacted James Demeter to design the first preamp for the Telly, which was a Telly preamp and a Telly.
Right, the
Uh,
one I have
eh
with your
yes.
name on
So
the
any
headstock.
That's the one, and so anyway, James helped me build this preamp, and I got this group up in what we call North County here that had a disabled group of people building electronics. I got them to build the preamps for me, and we were off and running. So we were selling pickups to Robert, and so it was like, "Ooh, I think we're gonna be okay here."
That
And
is
and so
beautiful, and I mean, and now it's like, you know, and like I told you, it's like I played several incarnations of your instruments with Godin and everything, and it's like, and so I found one locally, that I had to restore one of your early models, and I just love that thing.
Oh,
It's a
thank
great
you.
guitar. It sounds great plugged in. It sounds great. It just plays and sounds amazing still.
Oh, thank you. We actually do you know what the invention inside is that makes it all work?
Oh, oh,
It's the I got our 2nd US patent on that thing. So, a resonance in a guitar is actually a weakness, it's not a strength. It's somewhere you've got energy in your string, and if it finds a spot that is weaker at a certain frequency, boom, the energy is gonna dump into that spot.
ah,
It and in the process, it's gonna get translated into louder sound.
okay.
So, weak energy goes into weakness, weakness is translated into strength.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
So, you put a pickup on it, the pickup doesn't translate it into strength. It just reads the loss of energy into the top. That is the character of that guitar, is how it loses energy from the string.
Wow. Oh,
So, the thing about these acoustic electrics is that they were basically kinda rigid planks that the energy didn't go into the instrument very well. It would sustain unnaturally and just didn't feel right. So, basically, using a lot of the information that I learned from my experiments from the Catgut Acoustic Society about modes and resonances and all that kinda stuff, I hollowed out a Tele kit body. I bolted it to my barbecue grill in the backyard of my little house, hollowed it out with a router, built a brace top, built a braced, like an acoustic guitar top, glued everything together with crazy glue. But the thing that made it work is I put a resonator on the bridge plate, and the resonator had these little fingers on it that vibrated at dreadnought major body resonant frequencies.
wow. I did not know
So,
that.
if you pull that little hatch off the back with the screws,
Yeah, yeah.
you'll see what looks like a kalimba,
I've seen it.
and
I didn't know what
it
that was.
that's what that is. That thing's an energy sucker,
I did not
and
know what that was.
it just all it does is it dumps the energy into that kalimba, the same similar to the way energy's dumped into a regular full body top.
Wow.
It was just trying to simulate the way it felt and resonated. So, the pickup was deaf, dumb, and blind. It didn't know what it was on. It was just reading the loss of energy through into the body, and so that's why it sounded as good as it did.
Wow. Yeah, and they made that. I mean, I don't know if they still make them, but I know they made them for years with
Oh,
like
yeah.
metal, Roy.
That particular guitar was what put us on the map. Like, we were still kinda struggling going into that, but I licensed the guitar to Robert, and we were building up to 400 a month for quite a while,
That's a lot of
and
guitar, you know?
I've got pictures of Brent's playing one, and, Randy Travis was using them, and they were, like, all over the place for for quite a while, so this was the guitar that allowed me really to get the down payment to buy the home in which this workshop sits today.
That's
So,
amazing.
that thing, Robert and that guitar is like that's what really launched our company.
Well, now it's like, I'm gonna like later tonight, I'm gonna have to like take the back off of it again and look at the whole, for those of the people that are watching, you can see that there's the control panel that you mentioned on the back of it, but it plays and sounds so good?
Well, thank you. Thanks.
But I mean, also then, Lloyd, then how did this, I mean, and you got tired of building nut bowls, which I'd never heard that term before until I read it, that's what you call, I guess, acoustic guitars, right?
No, no, no. A nut bowl is an acoustic electric guitar with a hollowed out body out of mahogany. If you ever took junior high wood shop, the first thing they did was give you a chunk of mahogany and a little carving tool and said, "Make a nut bowl for your mom."
I think I've got my Grandpa Doll's nut bowl somewhere around here.
Yeah,
Wrong
exactly,
with it.
exactly. So acoustic electrics within the trade, mostly mahogany bodies, hollowed out, that is a nut bowl. That Tele guitar you have is a nut bowl.
What?
This was before I learned about the resonant back and the acoustic electric guitar, which we could talk about later, but
Oh, we're going.
nut nut bowls are like most acoustic electric guitars, even to this day, are nut bowls in that sense, and I learned that term from Bob Taylor, taught me why. He called them nut bowls.
I never heard that before until I was reading that interview you had done years ago.
So when I stopped building acoustic guitars, it was just because I was tired of sanding, I was tired of finishes, and I had this pickup thing, and at this time, now 2 children, and a whole lot of other stuff on my plate, so, I continued to build a little bit over the years, but it wasn't but I didn't wanna take any commissions, like, when I started making pickups, I kept my waiting list. I kept people waiting for over a year. Yeah, and, I mean, I that was kinda normal, but I kept Jackson Browne waiting for a year. I gotta put a pickup in Jackson's guitar, so I had to learn how to make them, right? So,
Right.
anyway, yeah, so it
Well, then
was that.
I've got to ask you too, Lloyd. Then certainly with the different evolutions of your pickups with LR Bags, how did the different incarnations? Because it seems like every time you've made like a leap forward, like, and I want to eventually get to what, the newest ones you're doing now, like with the hi-fi, but it's like, how did you keep evolving the pickups in the instruments for the acoustic guitars?
Well, I think any artist is pretty much dissatisfied with anything they've created about 5 minutes after they've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, what's next?
That and along the way along the way, I kinda had to finally realize that this was the talent that God gave me, and I wanted to give it back. I had to use it. If I didn't use it, it was kind of I was letting him down, and he'd given me so much. It was the gratitude, so it's like, "Heck yeah, let's keep going," and uh, I tried to listen too. Like, I'm a cyclist, and I used to ride a lot and even race downhill, but on these training runs, I would just be in this painful zone climbing up some half-hour crazy climb, and stuff would come to me, like problems. Like, I'd try to listen to people, working with musicians, "What's your problem? What can I help you with? What" it's like, I didn't really feel like I invented anything. It's like people would bring things that they needed fixing to me. It's almost like that. And so I just, one thing led to another, trying to do a better and better and better job of like, because I'm a luthier, I respect the guitar.
Right.
And because of that, I want everybody's guitar to sound like it should, like it is. So that's been the primary motivation over the years is just trying to get better and better at what we do. But now it's a we. It's not just me anymore. We've got an incredible team of engineers and pickup designers, and I mean, we got a really cool group of people that now we get together and fight like cats and dogs, and until something comes up out of the scrum, right?
Right. Right.
And then okay, let's do that, and so that's kind of the process.
Well, and so many innovations, because I mean, just thinking about my own instruments to where, I've got, your LR bag system in my, Gibson Hummingbird acoustic. and that's one with only the volume only. And then I've got it also in my Martin D18, and that's the Anthem with the volume and tone. And how popular, such as, the M1 system, the Duet, the Anthem, but also with, and gosh, it hadn't been that long, Lloyd. How long ago did you release the Hi-Fi?
Oh, 3 years now.
Yeah, 3 years ago. Because everybody was talking about it at the NAMM show, and I remember I was talking to George Carun, and I think he came by your booth and bought 100 of them.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about it because that's when George was getting ready to launch his
guitar company.
Yeah, his guitar company. And he's like, he said, Eric, I went by Lloyd's and I bought 100 of them. I'm like going, okay. And sure enough, when you go by Gruen's now, it's like going, it's all your pickups in his guitars.
It's awesome because we've been really blessed. But you want to hear a great story about the Anthem? Not too many people know this story.
Please.
Okay, so you remember Pete Newport with Breedlove?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Crazy Pete. He called himself Crazy Pete. Well, anyway, the moniker fit, and so anyway, this is another great story. Richard Cotton, remember Richard
Right.
Cotton Music, right?
Yes.
So first time I go to Nashville. Every one of our dealers, I call Richard up, said, "Hey, Richard, I'd love to come by and visit your store." He goes, "Oh, yeah, that'd be great, Lloyd." I said, "What day is good for you?" He said, "Well, can you come by here on the blah, 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 and can you make it 12 o'clock sharp?" And I went, 12 o'clock sharp. And I knew something was up because nobody never did anything sharp in Nashville except play sharp. But nobody, Nashville time was like 20 to 30 minutes late for everything.
Yes.
So
Yes, it is.
I knew something was up. He said, "No, 12 o'clock sharp. You remember." "Okay, Richard, I'll see you then. Thanks." So anyway, I parked my car around the corner, shortly before. I'm walking around the corner to his door in one direction, and here comes Larry Fishman in the other direction, both of us coming to Richard Cotton's at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Richard's just laughing, belly laughing. I had to let out a laugh. I don't think Larry thought it was all that funny, but I thought it was just great.
Oh my gosh. Well, everybody knows everybody in the business, just like, talking with, you and Larry and I was talking with Tom from TKL Cases.
Oh, yeah.
Like going, there's so many interesting people like yourself in the biz, but I want to bring up too another thing that I thought was a huge innovation by LR Baggs, by your company, the voice print the pedal you guys came out with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That thing, when I got it, because it's like going, I went down the rabbit hole with that one. When you guys released that, and nobody has really even tried to compete with you in that realm.
We're really proud of that thing. Thank you.
But how did you come up with that idea? What was the catalyst going? We're gonna allow people to, I don't know if you prefer model, profile, what, your favorite acoustic guitars have the sound in a pedal, and then you can activate it when you're playing, no matter what acoustic guitar you're playing.
Well, it's based on a thing called finite impulse response, which is that's an impulse. If you put a microphone in front of that, it's a little spike. So a guitar tone is based of thousands of these little things going on at the same time. And so the machine measures it, and then it can create a filter that'll take the input, run it through some gears, and spit it out like what it heard. That had been around for quite some time. But it was pretty much only useful in the studio because you had to be a pro. And like at the time, the Fishman Aura, which is back to the Crazy Pete story. Don't let me miss that one.
Okay, I'll bring you back to it.
The Fishman, the Aura was cool, but it took Eric Clapton's guitar, Doc Watson's D18 or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
And then now you can put that sound on your guitar. Oh, I didn't want I didn't want Eric Clapton's OM on my guitar. I wanted my guitar.
Bingo.
So, but that was cool. What Larry did was amazing and was really cool. But so the whole idea of the voice print was being but people could do that though in a studio setting, create a impulse response in a studio. And Larry, you could send your guitar to Fishman for 600 or 800 bucks. They take your guitar and make an impulse response of your guitar and burn it onto the Aura pedal and send it back to you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I think that was a cool. So that okay, that's my guitar, but okay, 600, 800 bucks, send my good guitar. I'm not so sure about this. So the whole idea of the voice print was to democratize the process. And our lead engineer, Tommy Lynn, came up with the idea. He just looks at the phone. He goes, look, everybody's got a phone. The phone's got a microphone.
Mhm.
What if we take qualitative off the table and just go quantitative? And I went, huh? He goes, yeah, this thing could measure. This thing's got a measurement mode. Let's try it. So we tried that out and okay, if you put a Neumann on the instrument, it's going to sound better. I mean, through the impulse response process. But if you turn it into quantified instead of qualified, the differences are very, very, very small. And so we oh man, we actually worked with some really crazy programmers in Singapore and the Ukraine, some PhDs that knew this programming stuff, and then we eventually ended up with, oh gosh, we the, Dr. Jonathan Abel, who was the co-founder of Universal Audio and teaching at the Stanford Artificial Intelligence lab up there, to help us finish it. So he was part of the team that created this thing, and so basically you could use your phone, take a picture of what your guitar is doing, and then and then the phone through Bluetooth would send it to the box, and then the box so that was the revelation, Eric,
That was
was
the
that
magic. Well, and also how small the box was, Lloyd, where it says, I mean, it's not a very big pedal because of the time when you had like Kemper and all these other ones, I mean, they were like bigger than a toaster.
see, it didn't have to be because the revelation was there's more computational power in here than a mainframe in 1980.
Oh, totally.
So
Totally. In your smartphone.
right. So this thing is doing all of the heavy lifting. So
That's a revelation.
we didn't have to do a monster processor.
Right.
It just had to crunch enough numbers to create the filter. And so we could keep it kind of small.
It's just, it is such a forward thinking pedal. You know what I mean? Just it
Oh, thank
really,
you.
yeah. I just, whenever I first got it into review for Worship Musician Magazine, and I was just like, and your team, sent it over to me. I'm like going, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to have to read the manual on this. I had to like follow the video tutorial. It's like, oh, and I need to know how to work this thing right, you know? But I mean, it was once you knew how to do it with your phone, and like you said, send the information to the pedal, to the voice print DI, that once you got it down, it wasn't hard. And it was your guitar sound going into the pedal.
Yeah.
And that's what we all want.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's what we all want. And we just keep chipping, what they said, you know how Michelangelo created the David, right?
One stroke at a time.
No, he took away marble until it looked like David,
Ah,
right? He just kept chipping away at it until it looked like David. So that's what we're attempting to do with acoustic guitar is just make it easy and pleasurable. And About 8 or 10 years ago, we finally owned I mean, most I think a lot of people approach playing acoustic guitar live a little bit like going to the dentist, and that doesn't happen with an electric guitar.
Right. Right.
You take a 10-year-old kid, send him into GC, he's giddy on the way, he knows he's gonna play an electric guitar, he's gonna play Stairway to Heaven in a Marshall, right? He's just happy as a camper. You send somebody into a Guitar Center to buy an acoustic guitar pickup,
Yeah.
then,
Oh yeah.
and right? So we finally owned it, about 10 years ago and just said, "Okay, we're tired of being the stepsister that never gets married, like right?
Always the bridesmaid.
We always the bridesmaid. We are going to transform the experience of playing acoustic guitar live to make it just as fun and rewarding as playing electric guitar."
And that's a leap because I mean, you and I both know on it, Lloyd, to where, and we both had a lot of guitars over the years, but it's like electric is electric. You've got the pickups, blah blah blah. You think you shove it into an amplifier, but with acoustic, with a great acoustic guitar, you're wanting it to have at least a representation of the tone you hear acoustically coming out of the PA system or the amplifier. And the problem is a lot of the older pickups over the years, particularly, with the ISO and all that, to where you'd get that quack, you know what I mean? You get like a brittleness. You did not have a great representation of acoustic tone.
I mean, we still have a long ways to go in that, but basically, you were asking about the innovations, and they are all pointed at that. Plug it in, get a shit-eating grin on your face, play your music. I mean, that's what we are
Right.
working on and towards.
Well, and I think that's what you're achieving with the new pickup systems. I mean,
Oh, thank
I'm,
you. Appreciate that.
I mean, I know I like the warmth. You know what I mean? To where, it's not, you want it to be warm. You want it to represent. I still like to hear, the pick and the fingers on the strings. You know what I mean? And when you can get that, but you got to tell the Crazy Pete story first.
Okay, so back to the Aura. Larry had just introduced the Aura into the market. We had the ribbon transducer at the time and the dual source, which were okay. We're pretty good. But anyway, Larry had just introduced the Aura into the market, and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Oh crap, we're going to be out of business. And if you've ever exhibited at a NOM show, you will know how absolutely lousy it feels to be a manufacturer to come to NAM and not have anything new.
Mhm.
You just feel like such a loser. So back to Crazy Pete and Breedlove. So Pete Newport owned Breedlove at the time. And so he did something similar that Richard Cotton had done to me. He said, Lloyd, can you address our group of salespeople just before the show starts? I'd like to do a little product clinic for them, and can you be there at X whatever time it was? It was pretty specific, and I said, "Yep, sure, no problem." Well, I show up. Guess who else is there? Rob Catch from Larry, not personally, but Rob Catch from Fishman with the Aura, talking about the Aura and just like how great it is, and all the salespeople are going, their eyes are going around like this, so like, "Oh my God, oh, this is it, this is it." Here's and so I'm just sitting there, just dying inside. Okay, how am I going to follow this? And so my turn. I get up there, and the first thing somebody asks me is, "Boy, do you have anything as cool as this?" And I looked at him and I said, No. I said, "Honestly, I don't." I said, "I think what we have is pretty good. I think it sounds really good,
Yeah.
but it is not as cool as this. This is honestly one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time." And put my tail between my legs and slunk off back to my booth, getting pisser and pisser as I walked, vowing vowing to have some kind of competitive response for it at the next NOM show.
Wow. And you did.
And well, so I've always been interested in microphones. So we came up with this microphone that was really really good from feedback and sounded the same on the inside of the instrument as it did on the outside of the instrument. And so then with our knowledge of crossovers, we were able to you the thing that made the Anthem different than any other mic system that preceded it is that basically most people would put microphones with a pickup just for the very, very top end to
Right.
kinda deodorize the pickup.
Mhm.
It was
And then mix it.
and then mix it, but it was just the top end because it would squeal, so we were able to create a microphone that had good enough feedback immunity to run it all the way down to 250 cycles before we ran it through a crossover. That's the lower mid-range of the instrument,
Yeah.
and then at the lower mid-range, we brought the element pickup in through a crossover up to 250. So that's just kinda like a subwoofer and a satellite system. So whereas before you might get 20% mic and 80% pickup, we flipped the script. So you got mostly microphone and just the lowest frequencies of the pickup, which pickups do great. So
Total.
the element gave it the stability, but the microphone was stable enough too. So honestly, with the Anthem, if that thing's feeding back, it's not your microphone, it's your pickup. So you experienced probably to
I've never
experience
had
that.
that one feedback.
So there you go. So that and the reason we call it the Anthem is that was our call to war. All right, you're going digital. You are going digital. You went digital. We're going 100% analog, class A, all discrete circuitry, real microphone, real pickup, real. And we called it the Anthem because that was our call to war.
I wondered where that name came from because I thought
That was it.
it's
That was
like
it.
a song, like and this is our LR Baggs anthem, it's like it was your call to war.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
exactly.
Well, now I gotta bring this back around, Lloyd. We gotta talk about the AEG-1. So you stopped building guitars, and then you come out in late 2024. I think they released to the public in 2025 with the AEG-1s, which is a very different acoustic electric guitar. But I gotta tell you, I got my hands on one of the prototypes, and I went over to your shop here in Nashville, and they showed me the inside of it. A lot of innovations, and what surprised me was, most of all, number 1, how great it sounded and played, which I knew that with what if you were involved. But number 2, the body is made out of carved plywood. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then the neck is independent,
Kind
right?
of.
Kind of.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I learned a lot from that Godin Acousticaster. And one of the things you may have experienced it, some of them didn't stay in tune very well for very long.
Yep.
It's a little noodly,
Mhm.
and the reason it's a little noodly is the body's kinda thin,
Right.
and that neck joint's a little flexible in there because it's not solid all the way through, it's a nut bowl.
It doesn't have
So
the
basically yeah, it doesn't have the core strength. So so when I started working on the AEG, my first goal was to just fix that problem. I wanted that neck to be solid and the thing to stay in tune. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make a full, basically almost a dreadnought size, so I can put a really big top on the thing and get a really good acoustic sound out of there with a traditional X brace. And 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 then I made my first one, and I put this big neck support. I built a big neck support. I basically made a nut bowl, but with a big neck support into the nut bowl. And
Gotcha.
and and I mean, it sounded okay, but it sure didn't float my boat. It was like more it felt more like a jazz guitar. You know, if you put a humbucker on it, it would have been a nice jazz guitar, but it sure didn't sound acoustic.
Yeah.
And so I thought, "Oh, man, this is not working out. My best luthier chops on my best top. What's going on here? You know, what the heck is happening?" So, just for yucks, I had this Chinese triple O, cheap guitar laying around, and I was like, "Hmm, I wonder if it's the rigid sides,"
Oh,
right? I was like,
yeah.
"I wonder." So this guitar had just regular sides. So anyway, I cut this thing down. I cut the back off. I cut the thing down to it was about 2 inches thick and glued the back on, and son of a gun if it didn't sound fully acoustic.
Wow.
Yeah, like, huh?
I mean,
Yeah.
everything about the AUG one. I mean, number one is the playability and sound to me. But number two is that it's just like an architectural work of art on the inside. When you look at the inside of it, because there was one that was cut in half at your shop here,
Yeah.
and I'm just looking at that, and I'm going, wow. But also, I think it surprised a lot of people, Lloyd, because of the preconceived notions with wood and tone and so on and so on, that that you went with plywood.
Well, there's a story there too. So, okay, anyway, this little Chinese triple O with the back this thick with the back glued on it. I mean, it didn't sound as big as it did before I cut it down, but it still sounded acoustic enough that if I could put a good pickup system on it, it was gonna be great. So, okay, so what the heck's going on? And so I realized it was the back. So it was the back being able to vibrate, not like a nut bowl. The nut bowl's got a dead back. They're 1/4 inch thick, they're dead. It's just the top. It's an ovation. The bowl doesn't vibrate. They're
Right.
kinda dead.
Yeah. What
So
the sound box for?
yep. So this little back vibrating was like, "Oh, okay." So then I started retuning the back and adding mass, taking mass away until I found this formula, right?
Yeah.
So this became a formula. And then the other thing that I brought to the party was something that I was blessed to have a conversation with Jose Ramirez III at Frankfurt about 30 years ago. He came to my booth, at my distributor's booth, and he knew that I was a guitar maker, and so I got to ask him some stuff about guitar making. And he told me that on his best guitars, he made rigid sides. He took he took Spanish cedar, scalloped it, and then bent it around on the inside so the sides were thick. So any of you guitar makers out there, there's a few people now that are doing this, but any of you guitar makers out there making full body acoustics, try out this laminated side thing because it's for real.
Wow.
So, Jose Ramirez III, rigid sides. He said, then it becomes like a drum skin and you can tune the both elements. They don't interact and make each other muddy. He says it's a beautiful thing. So I had this little piece of information filed away. So, okay. So the plywood was simply because I felt kind of bad about throwing away that much mahogany in a solid guitar. I didn't wanna machine that much of it out.
Yeah.
So, I found this sustainable poplar plywood that is made in the United States,
Right.
and it's plywood, but it's rigid and it's machinable, and I'm also a huge fan of mid-century modern design, the Ameses, Saarinen, the bent ply stuff.
Right.
Like, I'd brush my teeth with bent ply if I could. I just love it. S So I thought, "What the heck? Let's try to make it out of ply." And so that thing you were talking about in the inside, so here I had another problem. I've got a top that's vibrating, I got a
Right.
back that's vibrating, but now I've got a neck that's going like this.
Right.
Okay,
Wow.
how do you hold the neck and maintain the top and the back's ability to vibrate freely? So that's where we came up with that neck support thing. So it's basically just 2 big struts that come off the neck pocket that float down the middle of the guitar and attach at the waist of each guitar. So the neck is bulletproof, totally rigid, and allows the top and the back for us to tune the top and the back the way we wanted them to, and that's back to that formula.
Wow.
So, I wasn't 100% sure of this, but I thought. So, in messing around with this little Chinese guitar that I cut down, and I eventually added a bunch of wood to the sides to check the rigidity thing out.
Yeah.
So, I glued a bunch of wood, so I made that Chinese guitar size ultimately this thick with bending some wood around the sides of it just to prove the concept.
Right.
So, there it is.
Well, and that's the thing too, structurally, is just the AEG one, when you look at the inside of it, it was kind of mind-boggling to me, having seen a lot of guitars, from the inside out, sawed in half, however, and it's like, it was just so creative. It was a creative way, like you were saying, Lloyd, to make the struts to support the neck, but then also a compliment to you and your team to where the body is very ergonomic. You don't have the sharper edges that you usually do with most acoustic guitars. Everything kind of feels rounded. You know what I mean? It's just it seems like it folds into your body better with the
Oh,
AEG
thank
one,
you.
you know.
We spend a lot of time. That was a big focus of ours. We have been privileged to work with an industrial designer over the last 30 years. This guy has gone on to become a big dog industrial designer, address keynote speaker level at design conferences in Singapore and Italy. And anyway, he's become one of my best friends, and he's taught me so much. And one of the things, the best thing I've learned from him is he said, great design is based on the deepest empathy with your customer.
Wow. That's that's a deep statement.
Yeah. So we always keep that like at the top of everything we do. It's based on empathy with our customer. Okay, plugging in an acoustic guitar, it ain't that much fun. Well, we're gonna make it fun. Um, right? And
Yeah, you want the experience because I mean, and from speaking for myself, it's like, and I've owned a lot of guitars, a lot of great guitars, and I'm fortunate to have some great ones now. But if I can't plug in a guitar, for me, Lloyd, it just doesn't work because I mean, whether I'm playing, a gig or a church or a songwriter round or whatever, I need to be able to plug in, whether it is to a PA system, an amplifier, or whatever. An acoustic guitar that can't plug in, yeah, it just doesn't work for what I do. And I think a
and
lot
that's
of
the
people are that way.
y yeah, and that's the gift that Takamine gave us all. Showed
Mhm.
us the way. This is where we're going, It's like, gotta be able to plug in, It's like that's the dream, so,
It is.
yeah,
So I've got to ask you this, Lloyd, and I know you can't share a lot, but there's rumors that there might be some big announcements later in this year from LR Baggs this year going into next year. Are any of those rumors founded?
Yes. Yeah, we got a couple of big irons in the fire right now, and the first announcement's gonna be September 15th, and then the next announcement's going to be October 13th.
So it means I might have you back on the show then, obviously.
Well, I would love to, because I really wanna brag on this stuff, because we are really, 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 really proud of both of these accomplishments.
Well, and I was kind of hopeful because, once again, you and I were talking. I've gotten to review so many of your products over the years for different magazines and such. But, I was hoping you might do something new with the AEG 1 too, to where maybe it's an AEG 2 or something. And I love it that you came out with the different wood tops and everything like that. But, it seems like it's such an innovative instrument. So, but I know you can't tell us anything on this yet until the announcements.
No, I can't, but I can ask you,
Mm.
if you could dream up your ultimate AEG, is there anything it's missing? What would you did we miss anything? What would you like it to do?
The only thing for me, and once again, I've as moving here to Nashville, I kind of had to become a utility musician because there's too many guitars. So you got to be able to play everything else. I personally would like to see an AEG 12 string.
12 string?
Mhm.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
Because I play a lot of 12 string. I play a lot of 12 string, a lot of Mando guitar, classical, banjo guitar, all the weird instruments, auto harp. But I mean, I think that much like the Godin A12, I think the AEG 1 would lend itself with this rigidity to being a good 12 string.
Yeah, I had never thought about that, Eric. That's a cool idea.
I mean, I'd buy one. You sell one,
Wow. Wow. Oh, wow.
but I mean, I love 12 string. I mean, especially, I don't know, there's just something fun about it, Lloyd, where, I think
It
growing up,
it's kinda churchy, chimey sign. It's the sound. It's amazing.
it really is. And there's so many different versions to where you've got the Rickenbacker version of 12s to where that's the bass strings on top. Well, you've got, the standard version with the smaller string on top. But I mean, it's just such a great sound. And particularly when you play it with other instruments and you CAFO it, and it's like, I don't know. I enjoy playing the 12. And my father was a huge fan of when I would play the 12 string, and he was a
Right.
bass player. So, and the other question I've got to ask you, and I could not find this anywhere, so I don't know how you kept this a secret. LR Bads. What does the R stand for?
Well, that's going to remain a secret.
I'm like, I went through every source I could, Lloyd, and I'm like going, how has he hidden this so well? There's got to be. So I'm gonna have to start questioning people close to you. So before we have our next interview,
I don't think even the most talented Russian hacker has that information.
I think I'll find it, Lloyd. I think before I have the interview, I think I'm gonna surprise you.
You wanna put a beer on it?
Done.
Okay.
Beer of choice.
Okay, yes.
Well, and I need to bring up also, shout out to Acoustic Coffee Company that is partnered with me. And if you use the code Gear Gab, you will get 20% off your first order of coffee. And I will be sending a bag of coffee to Lloyd for coming on the show of this.
Do they have any light roasts, Ethiopians,
Yes, we do.
Guatemalans?
Oh my gosh. I'll reach out. I got to get your address, Lloyd, what R stands for. And then also I'll need to know whether you want bean or ground.
Oh, bean. Oh, please. I gotta have bean.
Done deal. Well,
Yeah.
it's so much fun talking with you, Lloyd. I've admired your work with LR Baggs and your team, for so many years. I own a number of products with pickups and pedals and everything else that you've done. I want to make sure for people that are joining the Gear Gab podcast certainly with what your team is doing with videos like they did with Dan Tominski and others, where is the best place for people looking to learn more about all of the LR Baggs products? Where should they go?
Well, I would just say our website,
Okay.
lrbags.com. That's probably and follow us on Instagram because that's kind of a live feed of our, what we're up to. And,
Yeah.
um, yeah, lots of great dealers out in this country and all over the world. Yeah, yeah. So
Well,
thank you, Eric. Thank you.
thank you, Lloyd. I can't wait to hear what the new innovations are going to be. And I can't wait to win that beer from you and enjoy that. So that'll be after our next interview.
All right. Day one.
Lloyd Baggs, thank you so much from LR Baggs. I appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you very much, Eric. And thank you all for listening.
Thanks for joining the Gear Gab Podcast with Eric Dahl. Subscribe to our weekly conversations on your favorite platform. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Gear Gab Podcast. You'll never know who our next guest will be.